911, what's your emergency?
There is a student here with a gun. Look, stop under the table, kids!
Bloody children ran out of the school as shots were being fired.
Shocked and saddened by the news of the shootings at Virginia Tech today.
What does it take for us to change what we are seeing unfold before our eyes?
They had their entire lives ahead of them.
My child is gone.
My little girl, who's so full of life, isn't coming home.
Welcome back. At least 3,300 Americans have died from firearms just since the tragedy at Newtown. Tens of thousands of Americans die every single year at the end of the gun. Now, one of the many people in America who has fallen victim to gun violence is a man by the name of Philip. He was shot just 4 days after Columbine. At the time of the shooting, Philip was with a friend. His friend's name, Kim Russell. She survived that shooting while her friend Philip did not. Since then, Kim has become an outspoken advocate for gun control. She's currently the National Field Director for Moms Demanding Action for Gun Sense in America, and she's kind enough to join us to discuss today's developments in the Senate and to help us put a human face on this issue. Kim, thank you very much for a few minutes. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Richard.
If I could, take me back to that tragedy more than a decade ago now. I know you guys mentioned, you and your friend, you were talking about what happened in Columbine since it was right on the national consciousness. And then I guess you walked out of that restaurant and then your life forever changed.
Yes, it did. It was incredibly tragic. I think what was even more ironic was that Philip was a high school teacher. So we talked about Columbine, you know, from that perspective. He was really concerned about the safety of his students and for himself. And then we left the restaurant. We moved to go to an art exhibit. And when we were leaving the car, we were robbed at gunpoint. And Philip didn't make it. You know, we lost him at the hospital, and it was terrifying. He was shot by a 17-year-old, probably someone, you know, who Philip could have reached out to.
You know, like many people, I saw this past weekend on 60 Minutes, a lot of the Newtown families talking not just about what they wanted to see legislatively, but have talked about how every second, every minute, every hour in the 117 or so days since the shooting of Newtown, the thought of their 6 or 7-year-old child no longer with them hasn't been able to escape the memory here. And they asked at one point, one parent said, try looking in the mirror and saying to yourself, if you have a child, that it couldn't happen to your kid, couldn't happen in their school, couldn't happen in your town. I've talked to a lot of people that comment had an impact on, and I'm curious, as an organization, and you try and communicate with people, what do you find is the connection where people can make it relevant as a possible in their personal lives?
Well, I think, you know, first of all, I commend those parents from Sandy Hook for telling their stories. It is not easy to do, and, you know, this is still very fresh for them. But I think it's important that we reach out to everyone on an emotional level, you know, as a victim of gun violence and as someone who's lost someone to a gun, that, you know, we let them know that this is a terrifying experience. It's tragic. It never goes away. My 14-year anniversary will be coming up at the end of this month, and there has not been a day that's gone by since that I don't think of Philip, and that I don't think about, you know, the near-death experience that I had, you know, and when I saw what happened in Newtown and saw that my children were at risk of that sort of terror, that's what prompted me to act.
Finally, Kim, for anyone out there who's, if not apathetic, a little indifferent to the issue, try and convey to them what it's like to have walked in your shoes since 1999, for the last 14 years or so here, never getting this moment, I would assume, you know, out of your consciousness. Talk about what it's like to be a gun victim here, and more specifically, why this is in the national best interest to change the way that we do business in this country.
Well, I mean, as a gun victim, it's a horrible enough experience to go through, but to think that our legislators aren't doing anything to try to prevent it from happening again and again and again is pretty sad to me. I feel like, especially, you know, with such public support at 90% for background checks, it seems this would be a no-brainer. I'm a little disheartened that we've had to work so hard to make this happen, but at the same time, I feel like we are getting some traction.
Kim Russell, I really appreciate both the fight and the time here tonight. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.